Good evening, and thank you for joining us on Top FC News, where we deliver the most up-to-date and relevant current news on our school systems. Tonight, we have a loaded lineup, so join us as we take a look inside many facets to our schools nationwide. To begin tonight, I am here in one of our local schools here in Miami, which has recently denied a few students with disabilities from participating in certain classrooms, leaving them without schooling and at home. Over the years, rights of those with disabilities has been hard to fight for. Times before the 1990s included lack of resources for general and everyday activities, even necessities of life. And before the Disability Act of 1990, those with disabilities were even discriminated against, many businesses disallowing them from working, schools denying entry, and so much more. And since then, thankfully, change has occurred due to a media push for equality and a broadening of acceptance. But due to funding issues and other things, students with disabilities have still had a difficult time receiving proper education. When COVID hit, this school, like every other, shut down and turned completely remote. Their teachers quickly had to adapt to what is being called Zoom generation, learning how to connect with students and give proper education through a screen. Come January of this year, as many schools are returning to in-person classes, certain students of this school with disabilities were unable to rejoin. Why? As one teacher said, quote, "A simple lack of resources. We were unable to focus on in-person instruction, connecting with students, and being safe on top of that. Students with disabilities unfortunately weren't on our radar due to the circumstances." So where does that leave us? Currently, we're seeking understanding and fighting for those specific students to return to their schooling. And the question for you at home is, what do we do? What resources can we find to fight for those with disabilities? I challenge each and every one of you to research, to go into detail, seeing what your schools, your local schools provide, what opportunities you can find for these students. And most importantly, reflect. What would you do in this situation if your student wasn't allowed back at school, or as a teacher? How would you advocate for your students? Now we will move on to Cynthia, who tells us a little bit more about bilingualism and how that's affecting our school systems. Cynthia?
Thank you, Paige. At this time, we will head into a section asking, what is bilingual students and how do we ensure they are progressing as fast as those monolingual students? A bilingual student is any student who speaks two languages and or English is not their first language. I'll start with the background of the laws attempted to assist those students who are bilingual and where we are seeing issues today. During the Civil Rights Movement in 1965, Congress passed the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Then in 1968, the Bilingual Education Act was entered into Section 7 and is noted as the first official federal recognition of students with limited speaking ability. The act has been amended 4 times to provide deeper understanding and detailed requirements for schools. In 2001, the No Child Left Behind Act replaced the Bilingual Act. However, it does not take into consideration the shortages of bilingual teachers and unfortunately sets unrealistic expectations and proficiency mandates which continue to cause more harm than good. There has been a proven achievement gap between students who speak English at home and those who have another home language, which without intervention, this gap begins to increase as the students grow older. White and African American children are more likely than Latinos to recognize most letters of the alphabet, participate in storybook activities, count to at least 10, and write or draw rather than scribble. Although intervention is necessary and needed very early, especially for those who are learning English outside of their homes, enrollment is low. In 1995, the U.S. Department of Education reported that compared with 73% of white and 76% of African American first graders, only 57% of Latino first graders had participated in a center-based early childhood program before kindergarten. With the achievement and enrollment gap demonstrated through various research, there is still a shortage of sufficient staff to provide support. Educational staff do not receive the appropriate training and are unprepared to serve the most critical challenges of the bilingual population and their communities. With the absence of appropriate and important communication between staffs, students, and parents, understanding one another becomes difficult, resulting in those students who enroll in early childhood programs or who are in schools being unable to receive the full and supportive access as those who speak English as their first language. To make a difference in the lives of bilingual students, educators must learn to be culturally competent. We must focus on ourselves and have a deeper inner reflection about our own culture while having appreciation and respect for individuals from others. We should encourage parent involvement by providing translators as needed. Appropriate notices should be sent home in their home language and provide parents with resources within their communities. Educators should plan activities that appeal to cultural and linguistic backgrounds for relevant learning. Have bilingual modifications such as digital books. Books available for children to choose from should be in multiple languages. Promote cultural differences by making content in the curriculum diverse. Make space for students' bilingualism and support students' social emotional development and bilingual identities by emphasizing home language maintenance alongside English language learning. I am Cynthia, and thank you for joining us in meeting the needs of bilingual students. Now we'll switch over to Olivia.
Thank you, Cynthia. In other news, let's talk about the topic technology and young children. There has been a great debate in recent years on the use of technology within early childhood education. Some views of this rising topic see technology as a negative impact to children's early education, while others see technology as an advancement to early childhood learning. So how is technology affecting our young children's developmental areas? Are there more advantages than disadvantages with the use of technology? Let's dive in. Considering how technology has come a long way over the years and becoming a part of our everyday life, the use of technology has tripled, increasing children's exposure to all different types of technology. From being exposed at home and school, it can be pretty hard to completely exclude technology from their life. So how can or could technology impact the development areas of children like cognitive, physical, and social emotional? There have been studies conducted to show the effects technology has on the different development areas. The results being, the use of technology for social and emotional development showed effective social interaction, collaboration, inclusion, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills, but there were concerns of distraction or becoming addicted. For physical development, there was an increase in fine motor development when actively engaged with fingers on the screen, but also association with obesity and not getting enough gross motor activities. For cognitive development, it showed negative effects on children's memorization and some positive effects with complex critical thinking, but majority positively supported children with disabilities with assistive technology. In turn, we can see how technology does affect children's development, in which there are advantages and disadvantages to including technology. So this could be a step forward in technology inclusion within early childhood education. And are parents and educators willing to take this step? Based on the research, technology did improve new opportunities for how children learn, but also showed that it cannot meet all developmental needs. So they explained it is important to have a balance. And according to the National Association for the Education of Young Children, NAEYC for short, and the American Academy of Pediatrics, following the recommendations of these use of technology in a development educational way can be considered in implementing to early childhood education. These recommendations included children younger than 2 years need hands-on exploration and social interactions with trusted caregivers to help their cognitive, language, physical, and social emotional skills.
For children 2 to 5 years of age, limit screen uses to 1 hour per day of high-quality programming. Co-view with your children, help children understand what they are seeing and help them apply what they learn to the world around them. Also, when used intentionally and appropriately, technology and interactive media are effective tools to support learning and development. So we can conclude that when planned and evaluated appropriately, technology can be used as a tool in early childhood education to support learning and development. And for parents and educators, this can be balanced at home and in the classroom when following the recommendations of the American Academy of Pediatrics and NACE. Thank you for joining me on this technical topic. I'm Olivia Heron, and now we will hear from Felicia.
Thank you, Olivia. With COVID cases picking back up, are schools prepared to sustain through another global pandemic due to limited school resources? Find out here on Top FC News. And we're back. We are currently on the brink of what might be one of the biggest challenges to world learning in our era, a massive instructional catastrophe. Students are in the midst of a schooling emergency among several children attending school while failing to gain basic core skills required for success throughout life. Education cuts have driven numerous schools to think outside of the box and devise new and practical alternatives to offer instruction and guarantee education can take place online. However, this wasn't the case for other less fortunate students. Many tackled the fact that some learners, primarily those from relatively low-income households, may not have a consistent connection to the web at home. And with food and gas inflation currently on the rise, many will be left with little or no resources to access food banks and other means to a hot meal. According to experts from Harvard, T.H. Chan School of Public Health, 4 Harvard Chan School academic researchers wrote in USA Today on October 28, 2020, noting that the percentage of U.S. families with children experiencing food insecurity has doubled from 14% to 28%, with minority populations bearing the brunt of the burden. Since May of 2022, an extra 2.5 million school children have slipped into hardship. So how can schools and families prepare for another lockdown? Written plans and school protocols. Collaborate alongside your child's school or district to develop a secure and realistic strategy that can be put into the school's shutdown departure processes and quickly implemented if necessary. Seek out funding sources. Because of its vast expertise in tackling neighborhood problems, Miami-Dade County chose United Way to disperse $20 million in federal monies. Furthermore, since mid-March, United Way has been administering immediate assistance and support through its Miami Pandemic Response Fund, giving more than $3.6 million contributed to residents, families, and small companies threatened by COVID-19. So here are the sites: UnitedWayMiami.org and or MiamiFlorida.com to access the SNAP Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program application. And lastly, free online learning websites. Unice.org is a nonprofit organization that provides free and open online solutions to enable distance instructions amid school closures. Learning apps and digital reading material can be found here. Stay tuned to learn more about how your early learner can benefit from state funding from Tara and me. Thank you.
Thanks, Felicia. In breaking news today, the key topic of importance on the minds of families in Florida is affordable childcare. Without childcare, multitudes of working parents, particularly mothers, are unable to enter the workforce. Ready Nation is a nationally recognized organization of business executives who have estimated that a lack of childcare stands to cost the national economy approximately $57 billion each year in lost productivity, earnings, and revenue, including $2.9 billion in Florida alone. The early childhood education system is key to Florida's economic growth. Making high-quality early education opportunities available will set the stage for future academic success and creating opportunities for our youngest learners. It is critical that children are exposed to a nurturing environment from birth to 5 to mitigate negative impacts of adverse child experiences during the most delicate years of social emotional development. Stimulating educational environments prepare children for kindergarten, secondary education, and life in general. Failure to invest in this crucial sector will very likely lead to an even greater workforce decline, creating a population of individuals who are incapable of making a sound contribution to the workforce. This is a two-generation matter that shall not be disregarded. Florida is on the brink of attaining critical investments to allocate toward early childhood learning that will strengthen our youngest population members and, in turn, our state. Our legislators have secured funding for early learning programs this session. We are now waiting for the signature of Governor DeSantis before it takes effect. The proposed funding will expand child care subsidy rates and improve voluntary pre-care support. This will result in an increase in school readiness for young children. The proposed bills will be the greatest increase in early learning funding in 15 years. Subsidies like these will make it possible to obtain and retain early childhood education teachers and offer a high quality of early education. It would be a crime to our society to let these crucial programs hang in the balance. I would like to thank Florida's legislators for their diligence toward creating the proposed bills and their focus on this paramount issue. Once passed, the funds allocated will move to secure a long-term, successful future for our children, and I urge the governor to sign these pieces of legislation into law and demonstrate his support for the youngest members of our state and their families. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Top FC News at 9. This was Tara Marie. Have a wonderful morning.